Alright, here we are for our 12th episode, and we got some big news for this week. I gotten word from one of the most iconic programmers in probably video game history is going to be on the show with us on the 10th. And I posted on Twitter the 9th, and that's because I thought Saturday was the 9th, so I screwed up. It will be the 10th at 10:30, our usual time. We're going to run a 2-hour show that night. So we'll probably have a break about an hour in and kind of go into the final stretch after that. And I wanted to go ahead and let everybody know that that's coming because we still got another show before then. And we're going to kind of walk these topics over the next couple of shows towards what we'll be talking about with him. And tonight we're going to be talking about No Man's Sky and that whole debacle. And bring up some points about how several games just in the last 5 years, and you could probably go back further if you wanted to, that have been released and were broken or released and were not quite what they were promised. And we're also going to talk a little bit about Proxima Centauri b, a new Earth-sized planet that's 1.3 times the size of Earth that's been discovered. And we're also going to talk, and I have mixed feelings on this, but it's a Nautilus Rift. I guess it's a device that fits over your face like a VR helmet, and it produces smells.
Smells. That's so
I,
so messed
I
up.
don't even know
I
where to
know.
start with that one. I mean, I would. I mean, I don't even see how the porn industry could make that a viable, sellable product, and they usually find a way for everything to work.
Dude, this is probably just a gimmick for the new South Park game. That's probably the only game that will ever support it because, it's South Park. And, if you watch it with any regularity, they're either, trudging through shit or whatever else kind of insanity that Cartman's always coming up with. So I guarantee this is just to try to sell more of that game.
Oh, I guarantee that. But in the same point, like one of my notes here was to kind of mention, could you imagine some of the worst games to play with that would be South Park, Skyrim, and a couple other games like that. I mean, that's what I always wanted to do while I'm walking down that trotted path, smell all the horse shit that's on it the whole time I'm walking through there, or Resident Evil smelling the dead corpses.
Yeah, there you
I
go.
mean, come on. Oh my God, that would suck.
What's that? What's that dinosaur survival MMO?
Oh,
God.
Ark.
Ark. Don't you have to collect dinosaur poop to do something with it?
Yeah.
So imagine, using that peripheral with that game. Let me play with some poop here and let me smell it at the same time.
I'm building a sandcastle.
Insanity.
Dave, what do you think about
Um,
Dave Crane being on here? I mean, that's
I'm
pretty
completely
awesome, dude.
excited. Yeah, no, I'm totally excited to. Already been trying to think of some really good, smart questions for him.
You know,
Um,
he is the reason why there are third-party developers now. Him and Kitchen and some of the female programmers that worked for that did some work for Atari and a couple other people like the guy that made Kaboom and a couple others got together and said we want our name and to be like a with a movie you say directed by and it's not a big deal. And Atari said, nope, we just want Atari on the label. So they broke off, made Activision. He was one of the founding fathers of that company that's a multi-billion-dollar empire now. So it's going to be neat to kind of see how see how he feels about the industry and how it's moving now. But I still don't know what to think about that nose VR. I really don't know what to think about that.
well, I just want to give you something. I actually got to demo that. I'm just trying to think of what convention I was at. I don't think
Oh,
it was. It may have been at the E3. It's been years ago, of course, or it might have been that the second or the third time I went to the CES show, which was actually in Vegas. Anyway, they had a demonstration. I think it was. I want to say no, it was maybe Quake or something. It was Quake 2, Quake 2, I think. Anyway, and what they did was they had to where when you're walking along, there was like a smell of a musty basement, like and as you're walking along, like inside the corridors and stuff like that. Whenever you would shoot a certain gun, it would make a smell of whatever they thought that particular gun should smell like. So like a certain gunpowder residue, but like each gun smelled differently. But that's all they had. That's the only demonstration they had. The other thing, though, at least want to say in the kind of the smell-o-vision, category, is
I guess
that
that's what we got to call it, right?
at Disney they actually have it to where Lilo and Stitch, they have like a thing where they strap you in and it shows like a gigantic, Stitch up in the thing, and he escapes and he burps on you, and they have a smell thing that shoots a smell of burping in your face out of the like it comes from behind your neck, but it smells so bad, and it's interesting because that is definitely where they've used that in some instances.
Right. So I have to ask, I have to wonder. So let's just for the sake of argument say that this thing takes off and people want to develop for it. So do they have chemical canisters that you have to put in this thing to continue producing the smell?
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions. What are the
Yes, it's replaced. It has replaced. Well, the one I saw, I have no idea what the newest one you're referring to and who's making what, but yeah, it had.
Sauce.
I think it had 3 containers with these weird smells, and they would mix those and then squirt them through like a nozzle, almost kind of like 3 ink cartridges, and it would squirt them a little, enough of this each percentage of each one to make a certain smell.
almost like
Uh,
those automatic deodorizers or something in a bathroom where you get near them and they'll go.
yeah,
Well, they've done something similar to this in movies. They've had smell-o-vision. The first one that I'm aware of was back in probably the late 50s or early 60s, and it had a scratch and sniff card. And there was a
Gotcha.
place in the movie where it'd say scratch number 1, and you would scratch it and it would smell like a graveyard or something. And then it'd tell you scratch number 2, and it would be like a pizza parlor.
that's
And then I
interesting.
think that there was another version of that where they actually sprayed the smells inside the theater. And I'm not sure what they called it. They all had names for these things.
Yeah.
But this new Godzilla movie, this Godzilla Resurrection, in Japan, the movie was actually shot what they call 4D. And in Japan, if you go to a 4D theater, it has these shaker rumbles under your seat that shakes like the earthquake movie. So every time Godzilla's foot hits, you feel it. It shakes your chair.
That would be the bomb.
and they have some large fans every time something moves overhead, like his tail. There's a lot of scenes of that tail going right over you. There's these fans blow down on your hair, like
Hmm.
like
Oh,
things going by,
that's
and
brilliant.
and they also have smell. They blow smells into the audience at certain times for certain situations, and apparently, from people that have gone over and experienced it, this goes on constantly through the movie. It's not like something just happens once or twice. It's just
Mm.
there's constant smells, constant wind, constant vibration, constant noise. I mean, it's continuous through the movie, and they say it's actually pretty involving.
That's how you get people back into the movie theaters. You know, that's what they need to do here. They need to bring that, give you an overwhelming reason why you need to go watch this movie in the theater instead of the comfort of your own home.
Right, instead of
Um,
Like
internet.
he,
like the
here,
I shrunk honey, I shrunk the kids ride. James said. Um, one thing
here in New Orleans,
I
the
wanted to
movie
ask
theater.
James real quick: is my mic fixed?
He said it was. I think he was saying just get the mouse off the screen.
Oh, okay.
That was all.
We're using
He says he can hear you now.
we're doing completely new software, completely new everything. I've had like 3 days to reassemble everything in a completely new piece of software, learn all of its curves and angles, and try to get this put together in time for tonight. So if that's the glitch we have for the show, I'm okay with it. Go ahead, Dave. I'm
Um,
sorry, bud.
yeah, the movie theater here in New Orleans, it has where you can reserve they're called like boom box seats or something, and they're the 4D thing that he's talking about. But there's only so many of them in a particular theater. They sit near the front, and they have huge woofers on the bottom, and it
Mm.
vibrates and moves your thing. It has some wind things that put like bursts of air that's scare like on the back of your legs and on your neck. And then I don't know about the smell part. I don't remember if it had anything like that, but otherwise, the seat surely rumbles and everything. If you see something, like Jurassic Park or something, that'd be pretty crazy.
That'd be great to go to. And there's a really interesting story. I mean, that was first developed. I think they called it Sensurround, and they developed it for the vibration part. They developed it for a movie called Earthquake, I think.
Awesome.
And it actually had some sort of transducers that bolted to the bottom of the seat, and it would vibrate the seat at certain times. One day, a woman went in to sit down with her kids, and the chair just fell over.
Oh,
And they got looking, and the bolts had worked out of the seat.
right.
And they looked, and the bolts were worked out of all the seats in the whole theater. They had to go through. They were
Oh.
all about ready to collapse. They had to go through and tighten up all the bolts back in the seats. So
New
they
maintenance.
basically,
New maintenance concerns with systems like that, I guess.
yeah, yeah, those seats weren't designed to be shaked like that. But yeah, the seat just fell over.
Yeah, sorry about
But I'd
having
love
this.
something like that. I'd love to see that Godzilla in 4D. I wish there was some place around here. I don't have anything like that around here.
Hmm.
Well, I don't think my filter's going to stay put much longer, so we'll go ahead and get that out of the way. You'll just have to deal with the glare, guys.
I don't think
Um,
we're blinding anybody.
One of these times we need to go up to Cincinnati though, and you guys have got to see this one theater that's just been up there like a year or something. I mean, they serve food to you and everything, and it's got like the most plush, full reclinable seats. They got bass in the seat for you to have some of the music feel.
Mm.
It's not like the 4D or anything, but my gosh, the most incredible experience just to eat and watch. Sit back and get your feet propped up.
Within 5 minutes, I'd be asleep and I wouldn't know what movie was playing.
They serve you alcohol in that one too.
They do indeed.
Awesome.
Right.
Oh, that cinches it.
Full bar, and then they had plenty of beers and stuff like that. So,
Right on.
Yeah, one thing that me and Rick have been kind of pondering doing a little bit more of, since we cover like anything that has to do with, nerddom, whether that's Star Trek, Star Wars, new games, or VR, whatever. we wanted to get into a little bit of the space side of things, and we really hadn't done much on that. And we didn't have enough material yet to be able to do a full episode or anything like that on Proxima Centauri B. But we did want to at least bring it up and talk about it a little bit because we want to make sure the show stays real diverse and that we cover a lot of topics, not just one pigeonhole ourselves into one category.
Hmm.
What all do you know about that so far, Rick?
Let me ask you first. You keep on calling it Proxima Centauri B. Did they call it that, or is it just Proxima B? I thought Proxima Centauri was the name of the star that it's around. That I can't see anything, man. But I had seen everybody else. I had seen everybody else refer to it as just Proxima B, and not Proxima Centauri B.
Well, Proxima Centauri is a star. Each
Right.
planet gets a letter.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you have Gliese 321A, Gliese 321B, and so on. Each letter is a planet. It's the way I understood it from what I'd read.
Right, but that's just one name title, one
Right.
word title. I keep seeing Proxima B instead of Proxima Centauri B. That's just a minor thing.
I'll have
Just wanted to make sure we're calling it right, by the right name.
Yeah, I need to do a little more homework than I had time for.
Well, don't worry. Look, it's me. I'm OCD about these things like that. Just brush it off. So what I do know about this particular discovery is that it's basically in our stellar backyard. It's in the closest star to our own. Which how many light years was it? Was it 4.2 light years away from us, or something like that?
Way too many.
Oh, yeah, still way too many. It would take us about 10,000 years to get there on conventional means that we have available to us right now. So, hopefully we can send probes out there or something like that. But based on the composition of the star and how hot it is, they've calculated that it's within its habitable zone, the sun's habitable zone. So there's a possibility of maybe some form of life on there, but we don't know the makeup of the atmosphere or if it even has one for that matter. All that we know so far is that we've detected that telltale wobble in Proxima Centauri that indicates that there is a planet orbiting that sun or that star. So basically, that's all that we know right at the moment. They think it's a rocky planet that's maybe Earth-like. That's about it.
Better question is, what does that mean for us? We haven't even been able to go back to the moon in 50 years. What's it going to be like 100 years? 500 years before we even know anything else about this planet?
Well, we haven't gone back to the moon because we chose not to go back to the moon. It's not that we've not been able to go back. We just never had a reason to go back after we won the Cold War. But there is a private company that won a contract through NASA to go back to the moon. So we're going to be back there in a few years through a private company.
Hey, now I got it on good authority that we never went to the moon. There's some YouTube videos on that.
Oh yes,
I know.
Let's not get started on that crap. Oh,
This
God.
time,
You got that
This time I
conspiracy
want-
stuff going again.
I want some high def pictures of
course.
someone going like this on the moon. And we're here, bitches.
What
We
does it
are
matter?
huge.
People will still say, "Oh, that's photoshopped." Oh, someone did that in Premiere. You'll never
Yeah.
make some of these people
Yeah,
satisfied.
Anyway,
Premiere
I
wasn't
didn't want to
around in
interrupt
the
you. Back to
60s.
your topic. It was interesting.
Oh no, I mean that's always got to be mentioned when you talk about going back to the moon. Oh, we didn't go to the moon.
You
The
mean
Earth's
for the
still flat,
first
too.
time?
Oh,
Like, no.
Proxima
Idiots, no.
Centauri is 4.25 light years.
Okay.
So, and it
I
was
mean-
discovered in 1915. So it is a long way off. By the means we have available now.
Right. So there will always be new innovations, new discoveries for us to have. And as a matter of fact, they're still working on that EM drive.
I was getting ready to bring that up. You mentioned
So-
it last week.
Right. So that might provide us a means to get there, and we wouldn't have to worry about what we're going to do for fuel for however many years it's going to take to get there. We'll have already made it in some unknown way that we still haven't figured out yet. But
What are the odds
it's
that creatures on that planet have made it here.
oh right, sure. But that that's
Mhm.
even provided that there's even an atmosphere on that planet. We just don't know enough about it yet. Hopefully, we can send a probe out there.
It
Like
looks
we did
it's a
to Jupiter,
low mass red
Pluto.
dwarf.
What's
Uh,
that?
What I'm reading here says it's a low mass red dwarf, so it's a small star. So if it's in the habitable zone, it's going to have to be real tight in.
Oh yeah, it is. But because the star burns at a much lower temperature than our own, I'm sorry, the star does. I keep saying sun. That's what we have. That's what we call it. It's still a star. So anyways, that's being
That,
very,
yeah.
very particular about it. But I mean, it's the truth. But anyways, so yeah, the star burns at a much lower temperature. So that you're right. It does need to be much closer to the sun, which is why they're worried that there may not be an atmosphere there at all. That maybe some of the solar radiation from that star has already stripped it, or he just never had the opportunity to form one to begin with, like our planet did.
I had read that they have a couple of techniques now where they'll be able to measure the light coming from a planet with a new system similar to Kepler, and they'll be able to analyze the light waves and go, okay, there's nitrogen in
Yes,
this
absolutely.
percentage, there's oxygen in this percentage,
We can
there's
do that now, as a
argon,
matter of fact.
and it's a real tried and true method of doing something like that. They've been using it, I believe, with stars to be able to determine what gases make them up. And
Absolutely.
it's applying the same technique to that other method and being able to determine, well, okay, there's definitely an Earth-like atmosphere here. So it's possible in our lifetime to know if you could breathe on that world.
Oh, yeah, I fully expect us to be able to get some kind of real basic telemetry on that planet. I mean, if we could see stuff, if we could see the edge, or you use the Hubble Space Telescope, or the Kepler to see, towards the center of our own galaxy, surely we'd have something that can peer out into our neighboring star and see what's going
Wow.
on.
Some of the stuff I was reading on the star itself that's going around, I guess where it's such a low mass and it's not burning its fuel very quick, it will probably last another 4 trillion years on top of the time it's been around.
Gotcha. Well, it's about the same length as our own star, so.
Slow burning
I hate to
candles.
be negative here though, but like I think you guys give our technology maybe a little bit too much credit.
How?
I mean, I think our chances of sending something to probe to see anything that's 500 years away, if not more. Like,
Dude,
I think there's like, I don't even know in our lifetime if we're going to actually make it to Mars as much as they talk about it. But we've sent probes there, and that's not even that far away. We're talking such a magnitude further than just Mars, and we are barely able to get a little rover car, over to Mars and just be able to look at some rocks. I don't
And
know.
not
Okay.
bounce off the atmosphere or
I-
auger
sure.
into the
Look.
ground.
That's fine, but look, we've got all these pictures from the Hubble Space Telescope. Those are not artist interpretation of data.
Yeah.
Those are real pictures. If we can do that with the satellite in orbit around our planet, imagine, for the sake of argument, we stuck one around the orbit of Neptune, something way out there that would be closer if you want. We have the technology. It's not impossible to get an idea of what that planet's like from here.
Okay, let's bring it back from Neptune a little bit and let's say realism. Say in the next 20 years we make it to Mars. What are our chances of technologically putting a orbital telescope around Mars, knowing how its atmosphere works, that we can put one and it'll stay in orbit around Mars and we can use that to see further
It's
away?
no different than the technical hurdles that we have to worry about here on our own planet. As a matter of fact, it would be easier to do it on Mars because we don't have to worry about all the space debris that we have in our own planet's
Well,
atmosphere.
you might have
That's free
more
of-
debris being closer to the asteroid belt, though. Jupiter
That-
does a lot of
look,
chaos out that way.
If there were any major movements from Jupiter because affecting the asteroid belt, we would have seen that by now already. That's
Now,
just something that doesn't happen.
I definitely wouldn't want to be there when one of the moons fall into it, because isn't it Phobos that's fallen?
I can't remember which one's got a degrading orbit, but you're right. Yeah, that could happen.
That'd be a rough
Another,
day.
another, that in itself, it's falling out of orbit. We're talking like God knows how many thousands a year before it decides to make a difference on our of any
Right.
kind.
Way out
If
of our lifetime.
But
I
to
mean,
be
my
honest,
God,
I
it-
mean, isn't that kind of a feat for us as a species to sit down and go, there's an observation, write down the math, do the equations, and go, that's going to happen that far ahead of time, and it be reasonably accurate. I mean, look at Juno. That's like trying to shoot a BB at a BB off of a moving train, and they fucking nailed it. They put
Yeah,
that
they slinked-
satellite in orbit with one of the highest res cameras in the world around that planet and nailed it.
taking a page out of Star Trek right there. They
Yeah.
slingshot that around the sun to get enough speed to get out there in Jupiter's orbit. I mean, I understand the skepticism, Dave. I mean, of course, there's the first thing. What's the point? Why do we need to do it? And then, of
No, no,
course,
no, I love the point. I want us to be able to do it. I just
Yeah.
think that you guys underestimate the magnitude of the difficulty of
none
what
of us.
we're
No,
even.
no, 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 no. No, don't get that impression. We know this
Okay,
is
okay.
well beyond our capabilities, but there are people out there who can do it, have already done it. They're still making all these crazy calculations. They're still detecting all this shit that's way above our head. I try to keep up with this shit. And half the stuff I read is
Yeah.
I don't even know what the hell I'm reading half the
I
time.
know this is going to sound kind of trivial, but I used to think that NASA was just being pussies about going further out or going to different places and stuff like that. And I got a hold of a free space flight sim orbiter, and it actually uses a lot of orbital mechanics and stuff like that. It's very, very complex. And it wasn't 48 hours after I got a hold of it, I was like, holy shit, no wonder they're so nervous about doing it. It's like just 10 seconds off on a burn will
Mhm.
put you at those distances. Instead of here, you're way over there across the street. It's a huge mistake. And it's just a small number, 10 seconds. It doesn't seem like much, but that's
No,
hundreds and
but
thousands of miles or kilometers away from the point where you need to be.
the other thing too is Rick that time and time again we do see these uber smart mathematicians. I'm not trying to say that I'm anywhere in their caliber. However, they continuously correct themselves, saying, "Oh, we thought that this mass here had this density, so we multiplied it and did all the calculations." And they're like, "Oh shit, that's not good. That's way off." Like they're like, "Well, since it's this density, it's going to take this much longer and stuff like that." So, like even I think the understanding of just our galaxy itself is so complex that these guys are still trying to figure anything like that out for us to reach beyond
That's
beyond our galaxy,
that's the
let alone
beautiful thing about the way
beyond
science is
comp
set
planet.
up, though, Dave. They aren't hateful to people who disprove something they find. If they figure out an equation for something and somebody double checks that equation and says, hey, you missed this, and they go back and double check it and they go, oh, hell, I missed it. They're not upset about that like with a lot of other disciplines. It's encouraged to be that way so that we do find the right answer, because sometimes, most always, we miss something.
Well, I also want to point out, this is not the first time we've detected an exoplanet. We discovered a lot of them.
3,000. Over
So
3,000.
and we know a lot about each one of those planets. So I have confidence in the science that they'll be able to figure out some of the basic stuff. We won't know the actual terrain, of course not until we get a camera there. Much like we didn't really know the terrain of Mars until we actually got some rovers on there too.
Mhm.
But I trust in their calculations. You're absolutely right. They're always doing more studies, and they're always going over their own numbers again over and over. Stephen Hawking does the same thing too, where he's flipped on a few things too. You're absolutely right.
Yep.
Science is always changing, but for the most part, I have
It's-
confidence in their ability to
It's a
do it
good
and
kind of
to get it
change,
right.
though. It's the
Their-
kind
their
where
thing
you
is-
allow your peers to review your work and help you refine it to come to a more perfect answer.
Has
The thing
anyone looked at
is,
what sort of
I-
transmissions has come from this planet?
No,
Is
sir.
there any
I don't-
radio waves or anything?
I don't think they've pointed a radio telescope at it yet. Maybe
That'd
they
be kind of
have.
interesting.
I don't know.
That would be
Four-
interesting to know.
4.5 light years. I mean, that's
Next
that gets you the
door.
last Star Trek movie or something. I mean, that's not very long. I mean, 4 years at the speed of light. You could actually have a type of conversation with someone. You could send a bunch of information.
Oh.
They could reply. I mean, in a lifetime, you could get numerous replies back and forth. So it'd be interesting to look and see if there's anything that looks like radio waves or television waves or anything coming from them.
Yeah, I know, and it's one of those things that's going to be interesting to see how it unfolds. Rick,
The
we're getting pretty close to 11 o'clock. You want to go ahead and do a short break so we can
Well, let Dave
water?
finish up. If Dave wants to say something, then we
just
can do
just
that.
want to say, I love the fact that there's these brilliant minds on the earth that are trying to figure out as much as they can in their lifetime these specific the science of our universe. Maybe even some of them are just the science on what's on Earth. But like what they're doing is with our current knowledge, making their best guess. You know, like
Some of it
taking
is. Some of it's got numbers on it.
these the numbers they get from here and there are
Well,
from other scientists, and they
that's
build on the other scientists, and that's fine.
Well,
I'm
but
just
these are things are called universal constants. I mean, those are things that happen universe wide. So there are some things that just don't change.
You also have to keep in mind
so
that
the thing. I mean,
there are some things in the just fundamental things about the universe no one even understands.
That's true. Yeah,
They don't
yeah.
understand gravity. They don't understand a whole lot of things that are fundamental laws and forces of the universe that define how everything works, and yet they don't even understand it.
Yeah, you can
So-
take and use mathematics and break things down to Planck seconds, which are like billionths of a second prior to just after the Big Bang, and they still can't figure out shit in those kind of areas. It's like gray.
So it's really it's not surprising that we don't have a lot of answers when we don't have fundamental things answered.
the other quick thing that is basically what something Duke was saying about it seems like 4 light years is not that far. But, I mean, like, okay, let me just throw a quick thing out there. Like,
Astronomical terms, it's
speed-
not
the-
that far.
this,
Well, I was talking about
I
for
think it's
communication.
ridiculously far, but
Communications.
the
Dave, I think we're
800
losing.
miles per second.
Yeah.
Per second.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can't even do anything remotely in that caliber of range of anything. We can't send the smallest thing. Shoot, we can't even send light.
Right, but that's not how we've been finding these
They-
planets to begin with, anyways.
But we can send
No,
information.
I'm talking about I'm talking about the travel part. Like I know, can you imagine
Yeah,
what
we
kind of a
can't send
craft?
physical objects, but we can send information. We could send them
No, I agree.
the last Star Trek movie.
We
Which
could
would be-
send them
I
to
think-
Star Trek.
You know, we can send them.
I wouldn't
you
do
know, we
that to somebody. That's
The other
not
magnitude
nice.
is not only are we having to send something traveling at 300,000 miles per second, but then you also have to take into that every one of those seconds of a year times 4 is a very long time in my
Right.
mind.
There'll be
Like,
there would be no conventional means for us to use to get there at a reasonable time. It will have to be some kind of crazy discovery and
Right.
traveling.
There's no physical way to send anything of material objects there. But if we got a telephone call from them that said hello, we could say hello back, and they'd get it in 4.5 years.
If we could send something at light speed, which
Well, all communication
That-
travels at speed of light, radio waves, all
Speaking
of that.
of speed of light,
will it continue at that speed in space, though, is a different story too.
all right, guys. I know James
It's-
just made it back, but
What
we're
we'll
gonna
do is
us-
take a break while James talks.
Yeah.
Obviously, we'll need to bring up
Take a-
astronomy again. It seems to be quite the topic or the conversation generator.
It always has been with us. I can remember us working
Like-
at Big
Yeah.
Bear and then coming back here. We're all like sitting here half asleep and talking about all this crazy shit for till way too late in the day, and then going out for a midnight shift and talking about it all night.
And I don't mean to like I'm not. I guess I'm sort of skeptical. I'm not saying that I'm not saying it can't be done and that we can't do it sometime in the next million years or
You're just
some
being
sort
a
of evolution.
realist about it, though.
But I'm trying to say that, like, I don't know, like
Mistakes are
it's
made.
astronomically bigger than I think than even the smartest damn people on earth. I think like they calculate it out to us and say, look, it would only take this, and you're like, well, the shit you're feeding me is a long fucking time, man. I mean, it's a
Well,
long
I don't think they give that information out there with the idea that people are going to think that we could practically get there. It's just, I got to tell you how long or how far away it is. Just like that Galiz, Gary, you mentioned all the time. That's 20 light years away. None of us are even remotely thinking about getting to that place anytime soon, if at ever at all.
It's kind of hard to.
But you're right. Look, healthy skepticism is what science needs. That's exactly what you need.
What David is doing.
Yeah, I'm not
is-
saying that I think their shit is wrong. I'm not
Right,
saying that at all.
right.
I'm just saying, even if they have an
Maybe-
exact, perfect
we're
wrin down,
prematurely
this is what will
celebrating.
happen. I'm just saying that we have nowhere in the finite, smallest way of doing half of what they talk about. That
I
makes
think
sense.
there's a good point being made here about science and being skeptical and keeping inquiry open.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good point everyone's made. And I think if you want to look at a example of where that's failing, is look at global warming.
Mm.
If you look at that whole topic of climate change, you see on both sides a complete desertion of the scientific method, proof, evidence, and everything that you need to really bring forth a theory like that and show that there's any credibility to it. I mean, you see the stupidest things. I mean, Obama gets on there and says that it's a proven fact because most people believe it. That's not proof. I mean, there was a time when most people believed the Earth was flat.
Right.
And there was a time when most people believed that
Now, Randy, according to
that
a
the
couple
sun
popular
revolved
people
around the
today,
Earth.
the Earth is still flat.
But
you need the numbers. You need the calculations. Absolutely.
what he said was idiotic. That
you
isn't
need to
science.
see Neil deGrasse Tyson do a
Yeah,
mic drop
liquid
on
shorts.
him.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh my God,
You know,
that was the most epic moment ever.
Yeah.
There's
Go ahead.
there's points being made by both sides that aren't being followed up, that aren't being proven, and the other side disproves it by ridicule
Rather
and
than
other
evidence.
and other reasons, and not scientific methods either. So I think climate change is a good example of how science is failing us.
No
that
kidding.
And that it's not being used at all.
I think it's because it ceased being
Like,
science
yeah.
at some point and it became a political motivator. So you have
But-
two political parties trying to balance that in their favor.
My point is science is participating in it. MIT
Hmm
is putting out studies. You got these guys that work for all these universities, and they're all being paid by people like George Soros because they want carbon credits. And if you go right now today and you look at the Democratic Party platform on the internet, one of the things that they're for is a carbon tax. They just put it right out there. We want a carbon tax. So you got these people with financial interests involved funding these things. Then you've got these other guys over here on the Republican side that don't want it, and they don't know whether it's real or not either. They just don't want it. So they're just out here smearing everything that people are saying about it. It's a complete failure of science, and it's astronomical. It's not very heartening when you see people like Obama and MIT and all these others participating in this farce and telling people, the average person who really isn't science oriented, doesn't understand the particulars of any of it, and are up here telling them stupid stuff like if everybody believes it, it must be true, and all this other just nonsense. And that's not helping matters any either. Where's the voice of reason here? Where's the rational scientific voice? It's not from Tyson. That guy's right on the bandwagon too of saying
So
well,
on
going to kill us all next week. It's
on the
heartening.
on the space exploration part, and science and all. If you guys want to take a quick break, we can come back and kind of implement No Man's Sky in with what we can
Sure.
do. Like, I think they may have taken on a bigger task, and I'm talking about how hard it is for us to do the real life stuff. So
Yeah.
maybe we can join that together if you guys
I
want.
couldn't agree with that more, Dave. I'm
Okay.
going to go ahead and get us a break in here so we can get some water or whatnot, and we should be back here in a little bit, guys.
Be back in a
Alright.
minute.
Right back.
Is and
All right, here we are. We're back. Uh, we've we got tangled up in a bit of a conversation before coming back. Rick, you want to pick up where you left off?
I think
Well, I mean,
James
God,
should tell
it's
us about the hooking up to a car battery again or something.
Rick and Morty. I mean, that should be enough for most people who watch Rick and Morty.
Absolutely.
But well, that's we could talk about that. But you start dabbling with philosophy and along with cosmology too, and it just we could spend another 3 hours talking about that and still not cover it. So we probably should just stop that conversation right here. Maybe get on into the primary topic for the episode.
Yeah.
Unless you guys want to talk about it more, I mean, whatever you all want to do.
We can always run OT if you want to.
It's the nature of universes. Just
So we were on the topic of what we were talking about earlier about the galaxy and what we can and can't do. Would you think that the No Man's Sky they tried to make something that was maybe a little out of their reach? I don't know. Maybe they tried to make something so vast of a universe that had these whatever growing on each planet, and they almost made like a program that would just kind of bleed into the rest of the program. I mean, it looks like it's a failure. I personally have not played the game yet, but I've seen a ton of reviews and lots of videos, and I can't decide if I want to waste $60 on it. That's for sure.
The idea isn't a bad one. It's actually genius. The concept. Now, the developer may have dove into something too complex.
Gary, if I could interrupt you for a second,
Yes.
check chat.
Okay. Okay. What's going on?
Well, no one can see my pretty face, so
Ah, I see. You guys go ahead and
I
converse, and I'll get them
I have
fixed.
been noticing a lot more people streaming No Man's Sky, and I have down here in Tampa today. They're having a Destiny con that they're having, where it's a bunch of Destiny streamers and stuff like that. And I got a buddy that went to it, and he's the only person I know that's actually picked up No Man's Sky, and he was telling me that a lot of more people are joining the community. He's like, it's getting bigger now. He's starting to actually see other characters when he's on planets and stuff like that. So,
like for real, like not like what happened the very first time.
yeah, he's saying that it's actually the game is starting to play now like it should have on launch.
So what happened? What was the cause of the problem at launch?
I'm not sure. He just said that they've been pushing updates out, a couple times a week. So
They've already had 7 updates that I think heard of.
If I could just throw out my opinion about what I think happened here, is I think once Sony saw the potential in this game, they threw money at them, said make it by this date, and they cut features out, which is what caused all this problem, just to get it by that release date. That's what happens when you get big studio money in on a project. I mean, the concept that they had from the very first E3 video, I thought it was just going to be a fantastic game. It started out from underwater onto land, got into your ship, flying through the atmosphere, going out into space, running into a fleet, and doing it, in reverse. And, you have push button atmospheric entry. You don't control that at all. Maybe some people don't want a simulator experience. I would be okay with actually having to control my ship's reentry into an atmosphere. That would be kind of fun.
really, you would like to go 20 minutes from one planet to another, and then whenever you're landing, you crash, and then you have to start that 20 minutes over on your last load point.
Dude, you're talking to a guy who likes permadeath in a game too. That does not bother me at all.
I am okay with that, but what there's nothing more frustrating is if you're in an MMO and you're going from one side of the map all the way to the other, and then I glitch out. Oh, okay, I've got to hit the R key and go and get something else to drink, and I'll check back once I get there. Like, no way, that is not fun to me.
They could easily just develop a system where you autosave just before you try to enter a planet's atmosphere, and then if you crash and burn while you're trying to enter it, reload it, you're orbiting that planet again to make another attempt at re-entry. There are ways to take care of it. It just, I got this impression that you were going to be able to go in the water areas of these planets. As far as I know, that doesn't happen outside of a mod for the PC version. That was one of the first. I mean, that was the opening scene in the very first E3 video for the game. You didn't see it in another video after that.
They showed us shit that doesn't exist in the game yet.
Yeah, And
They sh-
atmospheric flying, like you should be able to fly through the atmosphere to get.
I'm
one part.
assuming they rendered
that.
out shit for us. They
Mhm.
rendered out
That's not the first
pre
time that's
what they
happened.
thought they were going to have done or put into the game. And they rendered out stuff for us just to be happy and have some hype about it. And then, it's just not even the game that it's.
Right. And I mean, there are several instances. I don't know if you guys looked over that Reddit thread, but there are on video things that Sean Murray said were going to be in the game that people asked about that were not in the game, or he didn't say no. He didn't confirm it was going to be in it either. And you know what I'm saying? He just left the answer alone and let the audience, to their own devices. And that's not how you handle it. People had high expectations for this game, and there were a lot of things missing that people thought were going to be in that game.
Well, it's
They
not
said,
it's
"Thanks
not
for
the
your
first
money.
time.
We're going to spend it on making patches."
Well, what I wonder is, I wonder
don't
if
need
it's
just
going to be
some patches.
something that, if it's going to be something that people are still playing in 6 months, or if it's just going to be continuously broken that people are just going to be like, all right, whatever. If you pick it up, there's not going to be anyone online playing.
I mean, if it drops in price, I'll probably pick it up because the game itself is probably fun. With even what's there, it's probably still fun. That's the fact that there were lots of things that were said that didn't happen. That's what left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouth, I think.
Well, Rick, you're no longer cut off.
Oh, thanks.
If,
I'm back.
And again, if that's the worst thing that happens tonight, I am okay with it. Because this is brand new software. I've never touched OSB before, or OBS before. I've never used it before ever. So that's why it took me so long to figure out how to get that crop fixed.
Let's talk about some other games that have done that before. Oh, Dave, unless you've got something else you want to add to No Man's Sky.
No, go right ahead.
I think The Division has done that in a way.
They did.
I read the other day that the next DLC has been delayed so they could focus on
Fixing the game. See, the game in itself is not. I mean, it's exploitable, and that was the problem I had because you've got people who use these exploits to get all the high end gear, get into the dark zone to get the super high end dark zone stuff, and so when you're running in there and you run into them, they just own your ass just like that. You have no opportunity. It sucks.
That is really the only thing that bothered me about the game. I wish instead of getting to level 30, you could have got to 60 or 90 or something like that. I thought that, Dave and I played, and it was we played for a good month, and then we both were maxed out at level 30. I mean, we didn't play every single night, but it seemed like when we did play, it was one of those games that like, oh, it's 6 o'clock. Oh, it's 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
Mm.
oh my
And
God. That game can eat some of your time away.
It's a great game, and I still enjoy playing it, but I have to kind of watch myself when I play. I know that unless I have literally nothing to do, I cannot invest any time into it.
I'm going to mention the elephant
It'll
in the
suck.
room. that
There's a bunch of
nobody
gamers
spoke
out there
of.
yelling at us.
I
You
know.
can't yelling at us right now, James, that says the Division, what, you can't spend 8 hours playing? You know what I'm saying? Like, sit down, play 8 hours. That's the only thing to get anything accomplished.
Right.
Right. We don't have that.
And
kind
you're
of
just
time.
like, wait a sec, I have a real life. I love video games, but I can't.
I have to pay for the internet connection, guys.
I can't dedicate 8 hours just to get a mission done.
Well,
I have hope for the game that it'll eventually be fixed.
the
I'm just going to stay away from it for a while.
Rick, the
That's-
elephant in the room that nobody's mentioned yet is Destiny.
Oh well, yeah, Destiny.
About
Even after the Taken King came out, what else was there to do?
Well, and here's my big beef with it. When the Taken King come out, they took shit out of the game and made it to where you had to get Taken King to get shit you'd already paid for back.
Oh, that I didn't even know that. I don't play
Yeah,
Destiny,
yeah,
but
yeah.
that sounds like a lot.
That's
of
why.
shit.
That's why I quit playing it. I would buy the expansion pack after a while when it come down to what I felt was a reasonable price for an expansion. But what was happening was the way it was set up with those raids. You would have 6-player raids or whatever that you could do. Those are completely gone now. I can't even access them. I had like 4 or 5 of them or whatever I could do, and now I can't do none of them. And it's just bullshit.
Dave, what about Final Fantasy 14?
Oh man, speaking of a game that was completely effed the hell up and broken all to total hell,
Yeah.
a game that they tried their best to get it to work. They patched it and patched it, and was so broken that after 2 years they closed the game and all the servers for 8 months.
Damn.
Wow.
The
Wow.
Yeah, Square Enix put millions of dollars into telling these guys quit trying to patch shit. They literally had to go in and take chunks of data out and tell them to reprogram that section of the game and then stick it back in modules.
Wow.
And they had to go in and fix 8 months worth, and that was why it was called a Realm Reborn. In case you guys didn't notice. So yeah, I mean, you want to talk about Final Fantasy 14? When it first came out, people were cheating like crazy, and they couldn't stop it.
Mm.
They could delete the characters and stuff, but everybody could do it. And sometimes people didn't even know they were cheating. They didn't know that it wasn't a part of the game. It was actually just a glitch in the game that people thought, oh, I can get, this stuff from this or whatever.
So do you think they've redeemed themselves with the Realm Reborn?
Strangely, they have. It went from being like one of the most hated things that when it came back out, they gave everybody. I don't think all those people got to keep their characters. I just don't remember how it happened, but everybody that originally had the game got to replay from where they left off 8 months prior. But then everybody that came in new, they dropped the price of when it first came out to like $20. I think it was $19.99. You could get the whole thing plus the patch was like 7 gigs or some ridiculous amount. So they had to.
No, it came out on a couple different platforms, didn't it?
It did. It's on PS3 and I know it's on Xbox 360 and it's
Oh, really?
PC.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
That was when it supported keyboard, wasn't it, Dave?
I don't
You
remember
could
that.
Chat with the keyboard. You could plug
You
in
could
a
chat
regular.
with a little. I'm sure. Well, you could do that with a lot of stuff anyway. But anyway, yeah, absolutely.
always
If you
use
look at some
that.
of the statistics, that people loved that game after it finally, the thing is, people play MMOs for years and years and years, right? So when they close it after 2 years, it being gone or being fixed on for 7 or 8 months is not really like it didn't get rid of its whole lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
It still had 5 to 8 years of gameplay left in itself. So
I know I'm kind of backtracking a little bit, but as far as No Man's Sky is concerned, am I the only
It's-
one that thought that was like, for the game it was, Sony should have sat down at the table with them and said, now guys, we've got this cloud server system that could probably assist your game in some way, shape, or form. Maybe we should utilize this technology to improve the overall game experience.
Agreed.
I
I don't know
However-
why it didn't happen. I don't know how long it would take to reprogram it for that, though, to be honest with you.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah.
that was an option.
Well, at the early stages, that wouldn't have been a big deal.
Well, then we have to figure out when Sony got involved with its development.
That's true.
I just want to tell you that there's like 2 scenarios also in this that we've talked about plenty. You either complain your ass off that the game keeps getting delayed and you actually get a fully complete game, but you had to wait 2 extra years, or you get the game like one of the ones you play, Rick, all the time that's completely beta as hell, but you paid for it,
Mm-hmm.
but you're testing it for them basically.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I think No Man's Sky they did the best they could to get to a certain point, and they're like, we're going to release it to the people, make some money off of it, and then we're going to try to make this a better game.
I mean,
No.
that's all.
Say
That's all
that.
DayZ is. That's all.
Say
DayZ.
that.
Daisy.
They were not saying that. It's
No,
a
I know.
full-fledged 1.0. You saw that picture of him holding up the final copy of the game. They're saying,
Yes.
here's the game. Here's everything we said that was going to happen. That didn't really happen. See, there's a difference.
I agree
Early
completely.
access.
What
You're
you gotta
absolutely
keep in mind, Dave, this isn't a $20 indie game, it's a $60 indie game.
I know.
There's a higher expectation when the price tag goes up.
right.
I just wish I wish more companies would do what Hitman just did on the game they released. They wanted to release the full game, but they couldn't. They weren't ready, but they had a deadline, so they released episode 1 all the way. I think they're at episode 4 right now. So it gives you a good, hour gameplay in episode 1. It gets you kind of hooked in, wanting more. Then you wait a month, and if you want to buy episode 2, then you pay another $4.99 or $5. I think that's what they should have done. If they're going, I don't know.
How do you think they would have been able to do that in a procedurally generated universe, though? Like,
Gave
where
you-
would they be the cutoff point before they'd say, okay, more
give
content
you-
comes after this?
They give you 5 universes,
Hey,
maybe
Randy.
100
Well,
planets.
yeah, and I guess a universe could be infinitesimally large
Um,
too.
As far as like games that missed their mark, what about Duke Nukem?
Oh,
13
Uh,
years in development, and it's
yeah,
a complete
Nukem
train
Forever.
wreck.
yeah, yeah. It certainly missed its mark. That's for sure. But I don't think the original Duke Nukems did though.
No, they were
I think
only in
those-
development for 4 years, I think.
They were spot on for the time, especially Duke Nukem 3D.
Of course, yeah.
I mean,
That one people like the attitude about it. They've had a few games since then that had the attitude like that one did.
it seems like as time moves on, we're starting to see this repeat, like from earlier years in game back, during the Atari era. We're starting to see some rehash events, like where developers get sloppy and lazy, and they start slamming shit together with a cookie cutter or half-ass putting them together, and they don't work right. And then they're trying to distribute these games as finished products.
Well, how do you like what Steam's doing? Where Steam is straight out just telling you, like, it's alpha. This is like
That's
the
fine.
game. The game that you mentioned.
I completely agree.
As
Rick,
long
Don't tell me.
You know what you're buying into.
as long
the
as I'm
crossout game.
aware of what,
The what?
it is.
The thing
crossout
is,
game.
if they would tell us that, then we're agreeing that it's okay that we buy the game and we know it's beta or alpha or whatever the hell. I'm okay with that. Tell me it is, and maybe I'll still want to spend the money and be a. I don't care that it crashes all the time. I just want to be a part of it.
Right.
Well, it's
Right.
like with The Long Dark. I've been playing that game since it hit early access on Xbox, and I paid $20 for it. I knew it was alpha. I played it as alpha, and it's kind of slowly shaping up. And every once in a while, I'll go in and check up on it. But I knew what I was getting into. It was only $20. If I was one of those guys that shelled out $60 for No Man's Sky, I'd be pissed right now.
But the other thing is would you pay $60 even if they did tell us it was beta?
No.
See, I wouldn't either. That's too much.
Yeah, it's too much
Yeah.
to buy in.
Yeah.
And
Too much to buy in. Yeah, very good point. That's
and I think
so.
I think that was known with the crew that worked on No Man's Sky. I think they knew nobody would pay $60 to work on a beta for them, so they pawned it off as a finished product. And
They're totally beta testing it.
yeah,
They're totally beta testing everybody. Everybody that bought the game is a beta test. You might as
EA
well just.
does it, Activision does it. All the major companies are doing it
We've
now.
actually talked
Well,
about
now,
games that are
now
pretty-
that, and that's one of the things where like your system has to be online or whatever. I don't think that's a push from Xbox or from PlayStation. I think the developers are like, hey, do this, and we can constantly patch stuff all the time. We can patch stuff when your system's not on. We can go ahead and release stuff earlier. Everybody can make more money, and I don't know. I almost think that there's probably companies that, not naming any developers, but I'm sure they have sister companies that maybe they release something out on earlier, and if they know that they're going to run into this problem, so it doesn't affect their name.
Yeah, they
But-
kind of shuffled over, under that other flag.
But no, Rick, you had mentioned earlier in the week about the Steam game Crossout, the MMO, Vigilante 8 type looking game. It looks great, and it's in early access mode right now. And I've been looking at it since you posted it, and I mean it's $30. It's right on the cutoff. It looks
Right.
great, but it could be terrible. It looks like. Is this like an MMO World of Tanks? Because if so, I mean that's
Well,
pretty cool.
I think it's MMO Mad Max. I mean, I think that's going to be in terms of how it plays, yeah, that's probably a good way to describe it, and I would be cool with that. I think it would be fun.
Yeah.
But we talking about early access after buying into the DayZ standalone early access. I promised myself not to do it again because while early access gives developers, especially independent developers, the money they need to continue their development, if you have to wait 5 years for that investment to pay off, and I hate to say this because I knew what I was getting myself into, but I've grown a little impatient now, and so early access is a double-edged sword. It's great on one hand, and then it's got some drawbacks on the other side. So I think personally for me, I'm going to hold off on the early access programs these days.
I stopped playing it for maybe 4 or 5 months, Daisy, and I went back into it. Things looked a little more polished. Things looked a little bit better. It still had tons and tons of bugs walking into buildings and stuff like that, but it was, I don't know. I'm with you. I don't think it'll ever get fully released. I know it was supposed to be out on PlayStation, I think midsummer.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
All right, guys. As much as I enjoy the conversation, I do have to run this evening. So
Well, it's
Thank
getting about
you
time
for
for us
everything.
to wrap up for the evening anyway. We're up
Okay.
past
Yeah.
11:30 anyhow.
Yeah, there have been a
Much-
ton of other games that have done this, flubbed up a launch. I just hate that it's becoming more frequent, Sometimes, launches will work
very
on
much.
a console, but then get screwed up on a PC, and sometimes vice versa. Where's the QA? When we were back in Nintendo
In
and
the defense
Sega
of
Genesis
developers,
days.
though, code has went from being like, say, an Atari cartridge where it's 4 kilobytes on a system with 128 bytes of RAM to being several gigabytes and having 54 gigabyte installs. So it's a much more complex machine than a game has ever been now.
They
Sure.
still suck sometimes, man.
I mean, Assassin's Creed Unity. Come on.
Yes.
Come on, that game's screwed up from the very beginning, and they basically, at the end, just released a 40 gigabyte patch that reinstalled the fixed version of the game. I mean,
How about
come
the
on.
Batman game? The Batman game
Oh,
for PC.
yeah. Arkham,
It crashed
Arkham
from
Knight.
day one.
I understand what you're
Who
saying, Gary,
didn't
but
test that?
it's got to work at the very basic level. It's got to fire up and be somewhat playable.
I think
Well, let's-
ultimately at the end of this, I think we could all agree that developers
Not.
are getting lazy. And some of them are probably shooting for the stars when they need to step on the moon first.
The thing is, what I think some of the issue is that they're testing on these certain perfect machines. They have perfect square machines that they don't test anything else. They're just like, here's my machine. I played it. It works.
Yeah.
Done.
I think
Yeah,
another
hey.
thing that's playing into this too
Like
is
a
that
shitload of other.
if the audience and people, the customers, raised enough hell, I mean, people are still buying these games when they don't work.
Yeah.
And everybody's getting mad about it, and everybody posts all this stuff, but they go buy it anyway.
Right.
And people are buying No Man's Sky, even though there's. If you ask anyone, what's this game about and what's the point? None of them can tell you because there's no point. And then they get the game, play a while, and they say, I'm kind of bored because it doesn't seem like there's really any point. Well, no, there never was.
I think there was a point, but there's not enough content in the game.
Yeah. I think they were.
There was supposed to be a point.
Yeah, I
but the thing
think there's
is,
supposed to be
nobody
one. I
can
don't know
find
that you
one.
could really say there's a point to the game now. I mean,
It's very true. I think there
people
was a
need to quit
planned
buying these
point or
games.
something.
People,
Yeah.
when it comes out that a game has problems, that it won't play properly, the money flow needs to stop right then, and just when you fix it, we'll buy it if it works and
I
we
would
like it.
rather them do stuff like
Like
what they did
seeing
with
it.
Fable Legends, where they go, "This is just not going to be what we expected," and drop the project, move on.
I
I
don't know.
guess that's an extreme way to address the situation.
I mean, honestly, if you can see that the code isn't shaping up the way you intended, it's not going to perform as expected, why settle for anything less than what you shot for? Why not just say, okay, let's start over and do something different?
But
This
in
project
Fables
didn't make it.
Legends, they had to make it work on the Xbox. That because it's an Xbox only game. On a PC world, they could say, "Look, we've been working on this damn thing. It's broken quite a bit, but we'd like to just see if any of you guys want to pay $5 for it, and we'll let you just play the beta, and we'll try to patch it as we go along. But we need some money to keep going. Tell us that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be okay with that."
I mean, if people want to do that, that's just fine. But personally, I won't buy into alphas anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I just not going to have a game. Because what I found happened to me every time I did that, I ended up with a game that didn't really have all the features and it didn't work very well. And by the time they got the game patched and fixed and running right, I was tired of the game and moved on. So I never really had a.
Well, there's a newer, better
game.
one.
Yeah, I never had a game that I ever got to play. I mean, I played
Yeah.
trash. I spent a bunch of money to play trash and put up with all the aggravations. I just won't do it anymore.
Yeah, no, I completely agree that you have to, when you're buying that, as long as it's telling you are purchasing beta, then yeah, you're like, I'm buying into the issues and crashes I'm going to experience.
Yep.
Like you're agreeing to that. So
Yeah, I mean, people can do anything they want. I just don't like people telling me that this game is playable when it isn't.
no, I
But
completely
I
agree.
don't want to be their beta tester,
I'll
necessarily.
be honest with you. I think the Pogo UWP, that Windows mobile version of Pokemon Go that somebody homebrew made, is probably more playable than some of these games were at launch. And that's just something somebody jacked together just for the sake of doing it.
Look,
Lots of
guys,
smarter
we could
people
talk
out
about
there.
this stuff for hours on end. So let's just wrap it
Yeah,
up for
we need to
today.
wrap this up.
And then, I mean, the thing is, that's why we enjoy doing this, is because all of us could just jabber for hours on end about various topics. So let's,
Right.
as much as I hate to cut us all off, let's just do it for now, and we'll have a next one next week.
Yep.
All right, sounds
Hey,
good.
guys, you have a good day, and I appreciate you watching.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Later, guys.
Later. Hey, so maybe we ought to discuss having maybe a post game show too.